a $1 million Hong Kong bounty because of that embassy. Every year, when June 4th comes, we gather to remember something that the Chinese Communist Party has spent decades trying to erase. We remember the students, the workers, and the ordinary citizens. We remember the people in Beijing who stood in Tiananmen Square and asked for something very simple: democracy, freedom, dignity, and a future that belonged to the people. And we remember how the Chinese government answered them, with tanks, bullets, and blood. But for Hong Kongers, June 4th was never just history. June 4th has changed Hong Kong. It changed how we saw the Chinese Communist Party. It changed how we saw the handover. It became a political awakening for many, many Hong Kongers. From that moment, June 4th became part of Hong Kong's identity. We became the place that remembered when others were forced to forget. We became the city that carried the candles year after year in Victoria Park. This is why Beijing hated it so much, because the Vigil was not only about the dead in Beijing. It was proof that Hong Kong still had memory, still had civil society, still had freedom, and still had a soul. People asked, if all of this could happen without any accountability, then what would happen to Hong Kong? The question stayed with Hong Kong for decades. It was there in 1997. It was there in 2003 when 500,000 Hong Kongers marched against Article 23. It was there in 2014 during the Umbrella Movement. And it was definitely there in 2019. But Hong Kong has changed. A city that once held candles for Tiananmen now produces exiles who are punished for speaking overseas. A city that once remembered political prisoners in China now has its own political prisoners. A city that once feared what the Chinese Communist Party might do after the handover has now lived through what it did. We watch our city change so quickly that sometimes it feels unreal. Newspapers were shut down, activists were arrested, the Victoria Park Vigil were banned. The Hong Kong Alliance was forced to disband. Cheung, Lee Cheung, Alvin Ho were all imprisoned. But I do not want to stand here tonight and only talk about losses. The Chinese Communist Party is one of the most powerful regimes in the world. It has police, prisons, propaganda, surveillance, money, and influence everywhere. And still, it is afraid of a candle. Because a candle says something the regime cannot control. A candle says, I remember. A candle says, you are lying. A candle says the dead are not forgotten. A candle says even if you try to force the whole city into silence, you still have not won. This is why we are here tonight. Because if the candles can no longer be lighted in Victoria Park, then we have to carry the lights here. Because if people in Hong Kong are forced to lower their voices, then we have to speak a little louder. One day, the next generation will ask us what happened in 1989. They may not have seen Victoria Park filled with candles. They may not have grown up in the Hong Kong we had. They may only know Hong Kong as a place where June 4th cannot be spoken openly about. But we have to be able to tell them there were people standing in Tiananmen Square fighting for democracy, and they were murdered by the Chinese Communist Party. There were once a city called Hong Kong where people gathered every year to remember the Tiananmen massacre. There were people who went to prison because they refused to forget. And even after the regime tried to erase everything, we still remember. That is the promise we make tonight. We will remember Tiananmen. We will remember Victoria Park. Free Chao Hong Kong. 釋放周幸彤。釋放周幸彤。Free 李卓人。釋放李卓人。釋放李卓人。釋放所有政治犯。釋放所有政治犯。平反六四。 say.
A final say.
Thank you.